Today's episode of All Facts No Cap, we got Warren Moon, one of my all-time favorites. And Warren, I just want to go ahead and start off by saying this: the first black quarterback and first undrafted quarterback ever elected to the Hall of Fame, man. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was quite an honor for me. And now after being in the Hall for I think it's been 15 years now, it's time to have another one in there. So I'm looking forward to a Randall Cunningham or a Donovan McNabb or Steve McNair or somebody coming in there and keeping me company.
Agreed, man. I definitely want to see that too as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll just start off with this right now. You're the only player ever inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Canadian Hall of Fame. Talk to me about your journey going from college. Obviously, you were a star, going undrafted, so then going to the CFL, and then your journey into the NFL, and then obviously where you had your historic career there as well.
You know, it was quite a journey, and I don't know if this show is long enough to go through everything that I had to go through at every level, but I knew when I first started playing quarterback as a young kid in Pop Warner football that it was going to be difficult for me to maybe make it to the pros because there wasn't anybody for me to really look at to see, as a role model or as a mentor or whatever. There was very few African-American quarterbacks at that time. I think James Harris was the quarterback of the Rams, and I grew up in Los Angeles. That's where my hometown was, so I followed him. There's no question about it. He was a great player. He took the Rams to the NFC Championship. He also was in the Pro Bowl. I think he was a Pro Bowl MVP when he was there. So he was one guy that I could look at and say, maybe there's hope for me one day because there is an African-American quarterback that's prominent. Marlon Briscoe was the first African-American quarterback to start in a game. That was back in 1968. And he still holds records for the Denver Broncos for touchdown passes, but wasn't invited back to camp the next season because he got on the field only because the first and second stringers got hurt, and he got on the field and it ended up starting the rest of the year. So I knew it would be difficult for me as well. And it was, I went to high school and did a lot of good things in high school. Was an all-city quarterback, made a couple All-American teams, but none of the big schools would give me a scholarship to go and throw the football. I got a lot of offers from schools that ran the option and ran the wishbone and all those different things, but I wasn't that type of quarterback. My strength was my arm. I've always had a strong arm since I was a young kid. So I went to junior college for a year and tried to increase my chances to get a better scholarship offer. And I finally did after setting a bunch of records my first year in junior college. And I finally went to the University of Washington and I had a good career there. Ended up winning the Rose Bowl my senior year, was Pac-8 Player of the Year and Rose Bowl MVP. And none of the NFL teams wanted to draft me as a quarterback. They all wanted to change my position again, kind of like what they wanted to do in high school. So that's why I went to Canada. I decided to sign up there prior to the NFL draft because they had to have an answer beforehand because their season started earlier.
Yeah.
So I wasn't drafted because of that, which I was fine with because I wanted to be, if I wasn't going to go to the NFL, then career up there, won a bunch of championships, and then all of a sudden all these NFL teams are interested in me. And I had about 7 teams that were bidding for my services, and I chose the Houston Oilers basically because my Canadian Football League coach Hugh Campbell was hired in Houston, and I just felt like if I went to Houston, I was going to a coach that was familiar with me, knew my strengths, he knew my weaknesses. Same thing with me, I knew everything about him, and we had a lot of success together. So you take that and the financial package that they offered me, I felt like that was the best place for me to go. And then the rest is history. So it was a journey. There's no question about it. A lot of stuff in there that I don't even have time to talk about. A lot of negativity, a lot of name calling, a lot of booing, a lot of get that guy out of here, all those types of things. But I persevered through it all. And I had a pretty good career in 2 different countries. Not something I was happy about in the beginning because I wanted to be drafted like every kid that wants to go into the National Football League.
Yeah, of course.
He wants to experience that. I didn't get a chance to experience that, but in Canada, I was winning a lot of football games, having a lot of success, but in the back of my mind, it was almost like a bittersweet thing. Why am I up here playing when I should be down in the United States playing. I can play with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at them watching watching TV, watching some of their games. But there was also this driving curiosity in me is how good a quarterback am I really until I play against the best players in the world. And that's what made me want to come back to the NFL, because I was really enjoying it up in Canada. I was winning. I had a great group of guys. I enjoyed the lifestyle, being paid well, all that. So the only thing that kept driving at me is how good am I really? And that's what made me come back, to see if I could play against the best players in the world and be one of the best. And that's what drove me back.
I'm going to make a statement, and I want you to tell me how you feel about this, whether you agree, disagree, agree a little bit, disagree a little bit. From what it appears to myself and a lot of others, the makings of a great quarterback are just, they're so different. Some have a big, strong arm. Some are just really accurate. Some are athletic. But the one thing that, to me, it seems like is prevalent, or should I say consistent, among all of the all-time great quarterbacks, or should I say most, is what you just hit on: adversity. And, you look at a Drew Brees, who's from the same hometown as me, Austin, Texas. He wasn't recruited by any Texas schools. He had to go all the way up to Purdue. You look at the Tom Brady, who was a low-round draft pick, and Tom is still out there just outpacing everybody else in the league. And then you look at several other guys, like Joe Montana was like third-round pick. And then obviously yourself, you're going undrafted. So is that a major component that's needed to produce a great quarterback, somebody that has gone through adversity and has had to overcome things?
Well, there's no question about it. That's a big part of it. I think that's a big part of any athlete being successful, whether it's a quarterback or any other position or any other sport. The really good ones deal with adversity the best. The really good ones have a very short memory on things that happen negatively in their career, that they can somehow put that stuff away and just keep focusing on the now, keep focusing on that next play. And I think the guys who have been great playing this game do that as well as anybody, where there's a lot of guys that tend to dwell on, oh man, I threw an interception, and they think about it the whole time they're over on the sideline, as opposed to, okay, that happened, this is why it happened, let's move on to the next play. Those are the guys that seem to have the most success to me, to go along with all the other things that it takes to be a good quarterback. But that one intangible is probably one of the most important, between that and just having mental toughness, which I think is the same thing as overcoming adversity. You have to have mental toughness in order to overcome adversity. So that's one of the tangibles that intangibles that I think most quarterbacks have to have in order to be successful.
I get it. Now, how you just said how, you're more of a pocket passer. You're not this dual threat running quarterback type. Talk to me right now. In today's NFL, you see a lot of the dual threat guys. You see the Josh Allen, see the Lamar Jacksons, you see people like that, versus you, the pocket passer. Do you think that one is better suited for long-term success, short-term success? What are your thoughts on the pocket passer versus the dual threat guy?
Well, I had the ability to be a dual threat guy early in my career. There's no question about it. I could move around and run and do things, but I wasn't a option guy. I wasn't a wishbone guy, anything like that. Those guys were basically running another running back playing quarterback, where I was a guy who could throw the football but had the ability to run and make some plays when I needed to with my legs. But I learned very quickly when I got in the NFL, after I got tagged a few different times trying to run the ball, I better keep my butt in the pocket and deliver the ball to the playmakers and let those guys make the plays. You see that the league has really changed, and the dual threat quarterback has become the most popular quarterback in the league right now, because of what those guys started doing in high school, and they carried it on into college, and now the NFL has gotten smart and they're incorporating it into their offenses in the NFL. But you still see these old dinosaurs out there like Ben Roethlisberger or like Tom Brady or Drew Brees just retiring. Yeah. Those are the guys still having great success because they know how to deliver the football. They might not have the athletic ability to run the football, but they definitely have a lot of savvy in the pocket to be able to move around and buy time for themselves. And then because of their knowledge and their anticipation, they get the ball out of their hands. They don't hold on to it very long. So that's one of the reasons you see a Tom Brady still around here for 22 years.
Yep.
I played for 23 years. Drew Brees played for almost 20 years. Ben Roethlisberger's in like 17. Phillip Rivers, who just retired, another 17. So these guys who know how to get the ball out of their hands and deliver it accurately and quickly are the ones that are going to last the longest. The thing I worry about with a dynamic player like a Lamar Jackson, how long can he continue to keep taking all these hits that he's taking? Right now he's hurt, and he's been hurt a couple other times in his young career. He's only been in the league 4 years. We saw the same thing happen to Michael Vick when he was dynamic early in his career, but injuries caught up with him. And so those are the things that worry me about these dual threat guys who try and run too much. One guy who does a great job of doing it is Russell Wilson. He stays in the pocket, but when he gets outside the pocket, he's looking to throw it, and he knows how to get on the ground. He knows how to get out of bounds. He doesn't take a lot of big shots where some of these other guys do. So that's the thing that worries me about the dual threat guys. How long can they last in this game? Being that they have to be a lot smarter when they do run the football.
Speaking of which, Russ is probably the last, I guess you could say, dual threat, even though he's not really a dual threat, but he's somebody who's mobile, somebody that can get out the pocket and make plays with his legs. He's the last guy cut from that cloth that has won a Super Bowl. Do you think that a championship can be captured by a dual threat type quarterback?
Well, I think we saw that. We saw it with Patrick Mahomes. That's kind of what he is. He's a dual threat guy that can move around, but he wants to throw the football. There's no question about it. But he runs very successfully. I mean, even in the game against the Chargers last night, he had a 32-yard run late in the game that really was a big play for them to come down in scoring territory. So being able to do that every now and then when you need to is definitely to your advantage, but you also have to know where your bread is buttered, and that's with your arm and delivering it to your playmakers who can make a play like Kelsey did to win the football game once he got the ball in his hands.
Now, going back to Russ, a team that also you played for a brief time, what do you see happening? Do you think that there's a divorce looming between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks? And what about their struggles? Do you think, or should I say the cause of their struggles is happening so far this year?
It's been a lot of things this year. Russell, hurt his finger and had to have surgery on it. So he missed, I think, 3 games. And then when he came back, he wasn't all the way back. So they had a skid there of about, I think they lost 5 out of 6 games. And this has been their only really down year since Pete Carroll came here. Last year, they won 12 games, and they thought they were right there on the cusp of maybe having a championship team. But then you come into the season this year, Chris Carson, their running back, he hasn't been in the lineup of maybe 3 ball games. They just haven't had that consistent runner that they need. Jamal Adams, the guy that they put a lot into as far as giving up 2 first-round draft picks for, he's now out for the season. So they've had injuries that have really hurt them with the quarterback, with Jamal, and also with their running back. But they've won 2 games in a row, and they think they can run the table with their schedule that they have left. So we'll see what happens. But when you're a player and you play in one place at least 10 years, especially as a quarterback, sometimes because of salary cap situations, contracts or whatever it might be, it's time for you to move on. And that might happen here with Russell just because of what his salary cap number is and what they need to do to improve this football team. Can they do that with having him taking 17% of the salary cap? So that's a decision they're going to have to make in the offseason as they evaluate everything that happens. But I tell you what, when you start getting rid of a guy like a Russell Wilson, you better have something of an answer to bring back to this point. There's not a lot of dynamic quarterbacks sitting at home right now waiting for a place to play.
So true on that. Like I always say that, man. If you're going to get rid of that guy, you better make sure that you have a replacement somehow, some way in place, or somebody that you think that's going to be the heir apparent.
Right.
Because you can't just go out there and just put anybody out there. Because like you just said, guys like yourself, Russell Wilson, they're not just growing on trees, just on the street. So switching gears to the college ranks. We see a couple days ago, Deion Sanders out there at Jackson State got one of the top recruits in the country, cornerback out of Georgia, to flip from Florida State, his alma mater, to Jack State, which is an HBCU. And when you look at how Eddie George at Tennessee State, you look how Eddie Robinson just got the job at Alabama State. Guy used to play for the Oilers. You look at Hugh Jackson now at Grambling State getting the head coaching job. Do you see there being a cosmic shift in the landscape of a lot more top guys willing to go to these HBCUs?
Yeah, I think so. I think if if the HBCUs are going to offer the same quality of education, and then are also going to uplift their facilities and things like that, you're going to see a lot of these top African American players go to HBCUs, especially when they're going to a school where Deion Sanders or Eddie George, or all these guys who have had success and also have a lot of communication with the NFL teams. That's what these young guys want to do. They want to go to the pros, and who can give me the best opportunity to go to the pros? Who can give me the best opportunity to coach me at a certain position that he might have played and become an all pro, or also a Hall of Famer. So yeah, you're going to see a lot more of these young guys make those decisions. And then some guys are just going to make those decisions because they see other guys doing it. It's like, okay, if they're doing it and they're getting all this exposure and publicity, I think I'm going to do the same thing. So there's a lot of different reasons why you're going to see a lot of these young guys following suit.
I get it. Okay. Now, and this is something as players, obviously we have certain viewpoints on it, so I want to get your take on it. The Urban Meyer fiasco, or should I say the saga that happened in Jacksonville from beginning to end. What are your thoughts on that from a player standpoint?
Well, it's unfortunate because we all know that Urban Meyer is a very good football coach as far as what he does on the field. He's had success everywhere he's gone. But the NFL is so much different than what happens in college. In college, he's like the head coach, the general manager, the CEO, and everything. So he runs the whole shebang, and he can pretty much do and come about and do what he wants to do. In the NFL, there's a pecking order. Yeah, he's going to have some power as a head coach, but there's also a general manager and a president and an owner and all these different people that he has to, make sure he's following the rules about it. And he's broken some of those rules, and he's done some things that you just don't see NFL coaches do. Yeah. And it got to the point where their owner had to make a decision, what's best for our football team going forward, because he was starting to lose his locker room. When you start losing the players, that's the worst thing that can happen to a coach, when players don't want to play for you anymore. So I think that's why they went ahead and made this decision this quickly in his first year. It's unfortunate, but hopefully he'll learn from this.
Yeah, I think that there were so many strikes against him throughout his tenure, which is only about 10, 11 months for Jacksonville. I think first off, with him hiring the strength coach Doyle, with all the racial accusations that happened at Iowa, which forced him to leave, and for him to go and hire that guy on a team that is 70% minority, I thought that was just completely out of touch. And then he goes and then he signs Tim Tebow, who hasn't played in the NFL since 2012, and now you're signing him to play a different position he's never played before. That just screams a level of favoritism and a little bit of nepotism because of their days going back to University of Florida, having so much success there. But I think to me, what I think the final straw which lost the locker room is after a game on Thursday Night Football in which you lose, you stay behind, you don't fly back with the team, and then everything else that happened that weekend at the bar up there in Columbus, Ohio. To me, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, where he lost the locker room. Because yes, Urban Meyer, just like you just said, very successful coach on the college ranks at Utah, at Ohio State, at Florida. But the thing is, you're a rookie in this NFL. And you're around all these other grown men that they look at you like a rookie head coach. They're not going to come in here and just automatically revere you because of your national title. So when you don't fly back on the team plane after a loss, and then that's already bad enough, and then you're caught doing what you're doing on camera, or should I say video camera, that right there to me was the straw that broke the camel's back. So I'll ask you this. Do you think college coaches can translate to success in the NFL?
I think they can, but again, they have to know that it's a different atmosphere when they come in there. They're dealing with grown men, not 17 to 21-year-old influential young men. They're dealing with men who have families just like they do. They're dealing with guys that might be making more money than they make, that have much more stature than they do, as far as their their popularity and different things like that. So they have to understand that this is a different mentality that they're coming in to coach, and they have to really coach more individually when you get to the NFL. Where in college you can get everybody to rah-rah under the same thing or treat everybody the same way. You can't do that in the NFL. You got to treat almost every guy a little bit differently depending on his personality and what his status is on the football team. And a lot of college coaches come in with all that success from being in college and think they can do the same thing they did in college to have success in the pros, and it just doesn't work like that.
Couldn't agree more. I've always said that, in college, it's very easy to be a dictator. But when you get to the NFL, you got to be a leader of men. You got to be able to convince a lot of men who make a lot of money, some, like you just said, oftentimes more than you. Right. And you have to be able to convince them without incentive to follow you versus college where, hey, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to take your starting spot. If you don't listen to me, I'm not going to renew your scholarship or, something like that. So it definitely takes a different type of person, a different type of man to be able to lead men versus young men in the college ranks. Okay, Warren.
And also a dictator can usually get away with anything that he does. And
yes,
in the NFL, you can't be a dictator because you won't get away with those things. You got away with those things in college and not come back with the team or all the other different things that went on, but you don't get away with that at this level.
So true on that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get you up out of here on this one. So right now, you just saw earlier how it comes out now. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Cleveland Browns game is going to be postponed till Monday. You see Seattle and Los Angeles Rams. That's going to be postponed as well. And then I think it's the Washington football team and the Philadelphia Eagles going to be postponed. Now, the NFL already came out and said, we're not going to do any movement of the games. You guys got to go ahead and follow protocol, things like that. We're not going to allow the NFL schedule to be mismanaged or to be modified like how it was in 2020. What are your thoughts on that as a player if you had to endure those types of modifications on a Friday, nonetheless, to go ahead and switch up the game being 2 days later?
Well, I think this whole situation of this pandemic has been, it's unprecedented, first of all, and it's something that nobody has ever dealt with before. And it's going to be a constantly changing thing. I think the NFL coming into the season, they based off the protocols that they had put in place, and hopefully the players would follow suit and they wouldn't have all these cases, but they do. So I think things are going to constantly be changing based off of the new variant that's in place right now, which is much more contagious than say the Omega. There's just so much different that's going on that things are constantly changing day to day and week to week. So we as players, we understand making change all the time, whether it's, if it's raining outside for practice and you have to go inside because it's raining, or any type of different thing that might happen that you have to change your schedule, it happens. So I think players are used to change in the National Football League, and they'll make those changes. But when you first hear it, it's unsettling because you feel like you're getting the short end of the stick, especially if you're the Seattle Seahawks, where they haven't had many cases, but the LA Rams do. So now you're talking about, who has the advantage there, and now all of a sudden it's going to give the Rams more of an advantage because they get 2 more days to prepare for the game. So there's going to be a whole lot of that going on. But the bottom line is, do you want to play the game or do you not want to play the game? Because if you don't play the game, you don't get paid.
You're right on that one.
There's going to be a lot of mad guys out there. So I think all these players, they're going to be upset a little bit at first, but when it finally comes down to it, they want to play football and they want to get paid. So I think just like last year, they moved a lot of games around. They were able to play every game throughout the season. The players adapted to it, no problem. They had a Super Bowl and everything. This year, they're probably going to have to do some of the same thing, and I think they'll adapt to it again like they did last year.
Once again, Warren Moon, one of my all-time favorites, one of the best to ever do it. I so appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, and it was definitely a pleasure for me.
Well, thanks for having me on, and happy holidays to you and your family, and hopefully we can get through this football season and crown another champion here sometime in February.
Hopefully, my man. You be good. Same to you. Happy holidays to you and your family, and stay well.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right. Be good.